Hello guys, welcome back to my episode. So we are at episode 10 and before we continue, I need you to just take a deep breath for me please because what happened next was the most terrifying experience of my entire life. And when we ended episode 9, my husband had just burst into the bedroom unexpectedly, remember, and standing in his hand was my lost passport, which he had said hakuona completely. The same passport he claimed he knew nothing about. So the same passport I had searched for everywhere, inside my bags, my suitcase, cupboards, the drawers, nowhere was it to be found. And then he asked me a question that made my blood to run cold. Unakumbuka akaniuliza umekuwa ukiongea na nani? Who have you been talking to? So for a moment I couldn't speak. Actually, my mind was racing. Had he seen the messages? Had he checked my phone? Maybe my conversation was tapped to his gadget. Did he know about the woman from Uganda I had had a contact with? Did he know I had opened the drawer? How much did he know? So the silence between us felt endless. And finally, I forced a nervous smile. What do you mean? Nikajifanya nisijui anything. Big mistake I did, I tell you. His expression changed immediately. Not angry, worse, disappointed. Like a teacher catching a student lying kind of expression. Slowly he walked into the room, closed the door behind him, and he actually locked the door. Alifunga kabisa na lock, akatoa key, akaclick ile heavy click ya mtu amekasirika. So that sound still gives me chills if I remember it. Goosebumps were all over my body because in that moment niligundua something. I realized something. I wasn't having a conversation. Nilikuwa nauliza maswali. I was being questioned, interrogated. He sat down across from me, akaweka my passport on the table, alafu akaniangalia tu for what felt like forever. Akaanza kuongea, akaniita kwa jina yangu Grace, no longer Princess or sweetheart or babe, Grace. His voice was calm, too calm. Akasema usinidanganye, don't lie to me, Grace. I felt my heart pounding in my ears. Every instinct told me to deny everything. But another part of me knew he already suspected something. So nilitulia tu, nikastay tu silent. Aka give out a big sigh. He then leaned back. Akasema something that shocked me. Akasema, let me quote his words. You've been listening to people who don't understand. And the way he said it, like he was the victim. Like everyone else was the problem. Like he was trying to save me from bad influences. I don't know what he meant, but it was the same tactic he'd used before. Only this time it didn't work because I already knew too much about him. And for the next hour he talked, explaining, justifying, defending himself, blah blah blah. And anyone who had a problem with him was jealous of him. That kind of narcissistic reasoning and manipulation. Anyone who warned me was lying. Anyone who questioned him was trying to destroy our marriage. And by the end of our conversation, I understood something terrifying about my husband. Michael was genuinely expected me to believe him. Not because his story made sense, but because he'd spent years learning how to manipulate people. If you guys know who a narcissist is, yeah. And for a long time, it had worked on his victims, but not anymore. That night I barely slept, and I kept replaying everything. Hizo kumbukumbu za everything, from the first friend request to everything. It played in my mind like a movie film. The notebook, the passports, the women, the wedding photos, the warnings, the lies, and one thought kept running and returning. I need to leave. Remember the Ugandan woman told me 3 words. You need to leave. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. The problem was obvious. How? Because I was in a new country, I knew no one, my passport was under my husband's control. I didn't know who I could trust anymore. And if he suspected I was planning to leave, things could have become dangerous very quickly. So for the next few days, I pretended everything was normal. Pretended I believed him. Pretended I was happy, I was exhausted. It was exhausting to pretend though. But it was necessary for my survival because the more relaxed he became, the more opportunities I had to think, to observe and plan, and then something unexpected happened. One afternoon while my husband was not at home, he was out, his younger sister visited me. She had always been kind to me, the gentle, quiet kind, different from the other members of the family. We sat together talking for a while, then suddenly she asked a strange question. Aliniuliza kama, are you happy? So the question caught me off guard. And nikacheka too nervously. And of course, she didn't smile. Instead, she looked down, almost uncomfortable. Then she quietly said, you remind me of someone. Tukanyamaza tu, then my heart started racing again. Na nikamuuliza unamaanisha nini? Alafu akahesitate kidogo, shook her head, akasema nothing. But I knew it wasn't nothing at all because before leaving, she slipped a piece of paper into my hand so discreetly that nobody else would have noticed. Then I waited until she left before opening it. And written on the paper was a phone number and only 6 words. Call if you need help. My hand started shaking again because it sounds like she knew something, and for the first time in weeks I felt hope, real hope. And that evening I hid the note carefully, and the next morning I found an opportunity. Michael had left for a meeting, his business meetings, and the house was a bit quiet, and I borrowed a phone from one of the house workers. Then I called the number, and a woman answered. I explained to her nilikuwa nani and what I needed. Alafu akanyamaza kwa muda mrefu. Alafu akasema tumekuwa tukingoja, we've been waiting. And my entire body froze. Waiting for who? For me? The woman explained that she knew about my husband Michael. Not everything though, but she knew enough to understand that there had been problems involving other women with him before, and enough to know that I wasn't the first one, and enough to know I needed help. And over the next several days, a plan began taking shape. A careful plan, a quiet plan, which was kind of dangerous plan, but every step had to be perfect because one mistake could ruin everything. And finally the day arrived, the day I would leave, and the day I would escape from this nightmare, and the day I would find out whether freedom was still possible for me in a foreign land, knowing no one, with my family thousands of miles away from home. But I remember waking up before sunrise, and my hands were shaking and my stomach was in knots. I could barely eat that morning, and every sound made me jump out of anxiety and nervousness, and every passing car made me nervous, and I kept wondering if Michael somehow knew about this plan. So if he'd figured out everything, if he was watching me maybe through the cameras in the house, then came the signal, a simple text message with 3 words, leave now, and my heart nearly exploded. That was it. I grabbed my small bag, took only what I really needed and quietly walked toward the gate. And every step, I tell you, felt heavier than the last. And I, I expected someone to stop me or question me or to call my husband, but nobody did. The gate opened, I stepped outside, and for the first time in weeks, guys, I felt fresh air in my lungs. Freedom almost, and a vehicle was waiting exactly where I had been told. And then I entered inside, then the driver immediately pulled away, and for several minutes neither of us spoke. Then my phone rang, and my blood froze, actually turned into ice. It was my husband, Michael. I stared at the screen. The phone went ringing, and eventually it stopped, and then another call came, and another. But by the time we reached our destination, I had dozens of missed calls. Yani mingi. Somehow he knew that I had escaped from his clutches. And the next few days were a blur, actually. Phone calls, arrangements, paperwork, interviews, questions, and more questions. And eventually, with the help of from people who cared and official channels, I was able to begin the process of returning back home to Kenya safely. So the day my flight left Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos, Nigeria, I literally cried, guys. Not because I was sad, but because I was alive. I was free from his clutches, because I was finally going home. And when the plane lifted off, I looked out of the window and promised myself something. That if I ever got the chance, guys, I would tell my story, not because it was an easy one, not because I enjoyed reliving it, but because somebody out there might need the warning. Somebody might be where I once was, lonely, trusting, believing promises, ignoring the red flags, and thinking love alone was enough. And if my story helps even one person stop and think, then every painful memory is worth sharing. And today, when people ask me what I learned, my answer is always very simple. Love is beautiful, but love without wisdom can be dangerous. Never ignore the red flags, guys. Never let love silence your instincts. And never be afraid to ask difficult questions, because sometimes the answers can save your life. And thank you so much for listening to my story. And if this story touched you in any way, share it with someone you care about. You never know who might need the warning. That is the end of how I escaped. So after this episode, I can give you the next bonus episode. I'll reveal the 10 red flags I ignored, and the warning signs my family saw before I did, and how online romance scammers manipulate their victims. And we'll also tell you what happened with my husband after I arrived in Kenya.